Hey YouTube, Glock Chef here. And I know what you're thinking. Glock Chef, why so many weapons? Because America, that's why. Do I need another reason? Well, fortunately for you, I've got one. And that's tonight's topic, the weapon-mounted light. Weapon-mounted lights have been around in one variety or another for years. They've been in use with SWAT teams, special military units, special law enforcement units, and even for your pioneering man who duct taped a shotgun to his flashlight, home defense. Now, formally speaking, weapon-mounted lights have been around since the year 1912, when the first U.S. patent was formally filed for a night sight device for a revolver. That device became what is now known as the modern-day weapon-mounted light. Now, there are different varieties of weapon-mounted lights designed for different purposes. This Enforce Technologies light that I have mounted on my Scorpion Evo is designed for CQB. It is not designed specifically for home defense, and the reason being is because there is no way to permanently turn the light on. It is designed specifically for the operator of the weapon to keep both hands on his weapon at all times. So, it's not really useful for home defense. However, what I use this firearm for is my truck gun. I use it for CQB for the purposes of clearing vacant apartments during my security work. And I use it for just general around the house tomfoolery. I also bought this, and I've thrown it on this weapon because it looks cool. And looking cool is about 95% of what being tactical is really all about. Now, I do have weapons that are designed more practically for home defense, such as the mount on this shotgun. It just has a simple streamlight flashlight held in a clamp vise on the barrel and the magazine tube. I can turn it permanently on and leave it on if I have identified a threat within my house that I need to identify. My rifle, my M4, also has a permanent on, so that way I can just leave the light on and keep my weapon pointed at my target. My Glock, my Model 17, also has momentary on and lock on, as well as my other defensive firearms here. Now, you might be saying to yourself, that's all well and good. I see these things on SWAT teams' rifles all the time. I see these things in the movies all the time. But why do I need one? Those things are expensive. By the time you bought the lights and the mounts that I see here, I could have bought another Glock. I could have bought a Springfield XD. I could have bought a SIG P320. Well, yes, you could, but that would be a bad way to spend your money when you could have weapons-mounted lights on all your firearms. There are 4 reasons why you should have a weapons-mounted light on your firearm. The first reason, and quite potentially the most important reason, is because it helps with one of the 4 basic fundamental rules of firearm safety. Know your target and know what lies behind your target. If you can use your flashlight to identify your target, you have a greater chance of being able to engage that threat, eliminate that threat, while also eliminating the possibility of accidentally firing at a friend or family member that you didn't know was up and about in the night. I can't think of anything worse than hearing a bump in the night, getting up, grabbing my defensive handgun, going for my kid's room to try to drag them back to my room for safety, and accidentally shooting my wife. Now, I'm not married. That's just a hypothetical situation. But in my mind, that's one of the worst things that could possibly happen to a person who has a family, is getting up in the middle of the night for that bump in the night, not having a light with or on my firearm, and accidentally shooting and killing a family member because in the dark I couldn't see who it was, and I thought that what they had in their hand was a weapon. It's a sad truth, but it's happened several times in our nation. We see it on the news all the time, and it's a tragedy that can be avoided with a weapons-mounted light. The second is as a deterrent. If you're a burglar, which, hey, you could be, I don't know, it's the internet, anything is possible, and you're in a home and all of a sudden a 500 lumen light hits you What are you going to do? You're not just going to hold your hand up and keep rifling through someone's belongings. You're not just going to hold your hand up and try to make it out the door with what you've got. You're going to stand there for a second and wonder what's going on. Why am I blind? Well, that extra second, folks, can mean the difference between life and death for the homeowner. That second prevents your burglar from trying to reach for his or her own weapon, prevents them from firing in your direction immediately. Now, they may still get off a couple shots, but they're not going to know exactly where you are in relation to that light because they're going to be blinded. Makes things a lot safer for you, and it might actually stop the robbery in progress before you actually have to engage with lethal force. The third reason a weapon-mounted light is a great tool to add to your home defense collection is for convenience. If you already have the light mounted on your weapon, there's no need to keep a secondary flashlight by your bed. Now, I still recommend that you keep a flashlight near your bed, or you keep a set of rechargeable flashlights somewhere in your home in case of a power outage or other emergency where you don't necessarily need a firearm. However, in the case of a home invasion, a break-in, a burglary, or what may end up being just your teenage daughter sneaking home late after a date, you're going to appreciate the convenience of having a light already mounted on your firearm, especially if it comes down to confronting whatever the bump in the night was. You're not going to be suddenly wishing that you had grabbed that light that was on your nightstand. It's already on your weapon. You grabbed your gun, you got your light. Good to go. The fourth reason why a weapon-mounted light is practical and necessary in a home defense situation is not only a combination of all three of these things, it's also a training tool. You can use your weapon-mounted light or your weapon-mounted laser for trigger control, for grip control, because it actually will show you where your light and where your laser is going and how much movement you have while you're training. It also allows you to practice in these low-level situations where light may not be available, so that way you can actually learn how to use that light in a defensive situation. The weapon-mounted light is going to be much easier to learn how to use and train with. It's going to be much easier to learn how to utilize in a tactical situation, and therefore, being able to use it as a training tool on your weapon of choice is an absolute essential. These are the four reasons why you should absolutely consider having a weapon-mounted light on your weapon. That being said, what type of light is entirely up to you. There's Insight Technologies lights, there's Inforce Technologies lights, there's just your common weapons light that'll take any old flashlight. I put a Streamlight in mine. There's your Streamlight ProTac series, which is for your more military type rifles and for your more professional shooter. And then of course you have the Streamlight TLR series, which is your most common variety. Now, that being said, what if you have a subcompact firearm? Well, don't worry. Many companies offer a weapons-mounted light solution for you. Many holster makers are now beginning to make holsters for those weapon-mounted lights. Just because you carry a Glock 43 or you carry a Smith & Wesson Shield doesn't mean you have to feel left out. Crimson Trace, Surefire, and Streamlight are making lights for all of these firearms. You can also find holsters for all these firearms online. Now, there are a few disadvantages to having a weapons-mounted light. If you have a weapons-mounted light on your firearm, then someone is going to dial in on that light, and if they do open fire on you, chances are they're going to aim right for that light. You increase your chances of getting hit, you increase your chances of being injured. However, that outweighs anything else. The advantage of having a light mounted on your firearm. If you are worried about having someone aim the weapon in your general direction and fire at the light, then by all means, carry a secondary flashlight, but it negates the purposes I've mentioned before. There is actually a fifth reason to have a weapon-mounted light on any firearm, and that is the use of hands-free. It's not just an in-home defensive tool. That's why I didn't mention it earlier. Having a weapon-mounted light on any of your sidearms or any of your primary weapons gives you the ability to get your offhand free. If I need to grab something, if I need to help pick someone up, if I need to apply pressure to a wound without taking my eyes off a threat, if I have to go to my kid's room, grab my kid and drag him back to my bedroom, I have the ability to do so. But it's not an advantage just for your home defensive firearm. It's an advantage in any weapon-mounted light that has a permanent on switch. You turn that light on, you keep your threat area covered, you use your offhand for whatever you need your offhand for. Be it grabbing a family member to pull them to the line of safety, be it holding pressure on a wound from one of your teammates who's bleeding, or be it something as simple as a magazine change. You have your hand free to do that. Now, at a lot of police academies and a lot of federal agencies across the country, they are still teaching officers and federal agents as well as security personnel how to utilize a basic flashlight with their weapon. The majority of these people teach the crossover method, which is where you have your firearm mounted over your non-dominant hand, and in your non-dominant hand you hold the flashlight. That's all well and good. If you don't have a weapon-mounted light, that is the way to do it. However, what's going to be more secure of a firing stance? This or this? Both hands on the weapon, sight picture aligned, good firm grip with both hands, with your shoulders locked out, your elbows slightly slack. The second one is going to be your most stable firing platform. The first one, while stable, provides a weakness for when you're shooting. That is a liability. It is something that could end up getting you injured, and ultimately it is something that can be avoided just by having a weapons mounted light. Now, that being said, your preference is your preference. If you prefer the Enforce Technologies light, buy the Enforce Technologies light. If you've got money sitting around and you want to spend $300 on a Surefire X300, then by all means, it's a great light, do so. If you want to buy a Streamlight ProTac, by all means, I absolutely recommend you do so. However, it is the Glock Chef's professional and personal opinion that a weapon-mounted light on a defensive firearm is essential. Now, that being said, I think we've pretty much covered everything we can cover on this topic. So, at this time, I'd like to go ahead and say thank you to Jeremiah and Andy for helping with our sound, our lighting, and our videography. I'm fairly certain that's a word. If not, it is now. We'll put it in the dictionary later on. Don't worry about it, folks. It's the internet. We can do that. I also want to say a brief shout out and thank you to those of us who have already looked at, watched, and subscribed to the channels. And by us, I mean me too. Yeah, I'm that guy. So, while you're at it, if you like what I have to say and you agree with my opinion, go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and give us a little subscribey to the channel. And, most importantly, don't forget that little ding, that little bell right there on YouTube that allows you to get a notification when a new video is posted, because we wouldn't want you to miss out on any of our content. So at this time, I'd like to say thank you all for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to come on YouTube and speak in front of you on a topic that I feel is very important, and I'd like to wish all of you a lovely life. This is Glock Chef.